Well, well, well. What a day in the Premier League. You guys are laughing first, so behave yourselves. But what a day in the Premier League. And I'm talking about the kickoff that we just saw between Manchester City and Tottenham Hotspur. Manchester City nil, Tottenham Hotspur 4. Ange Postecoglou's army just storming the Etihad and getting all 3 points, with birthday boy James Maddison getting a brace in what is probably one of the most surprising results of the season so far, especially because now, for the first time in his career, Pep Guardiola has lost 5 in a row. I don't think this was the 5 in a row that City and Pep were aiming for, especially which was such a good week for Manchester City in terms of news, with Pep Guardiola staying on, at least extending his contract for at least one more year. But wow, gentlemen, how do we even start? Janusz, I'm going to start with you because I know that you, as a Red from the Merseyside side, would definitely have kept a close eye on this game. But again, Tottenham Hotspur 4, Manchester City nil. We didn't predict it. How did Spurs pull it off?
Just to clarify, I'm not laughing at Manchester City necessarily. I'm laughing because the Premier League hell is real. No matter who, no matter who you are. I mean, it's incredible,
this season,
right?
Specifically.
We so often talk about Manchester City, about their depth. When they're missing players, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, right? It's not an excuse, but we've said that about Arsenal when they lost Odegaard and a couple key players. They had that spell. For the most part, Manchester City has always pulled it off, but the combination of what I would call spine missing, right? If you look at Ruben Dias, if you look at Kovacic, if you look at Rodri, right down the middle. I mean, it's difficult sometimes. And we still saw a formidable lineup there. Yeah. But we also saw what we rarely see, and something that Manchester City so often does to other teams, right? This was truly a humiliation to Manchester City. And and we're at a point right now where, I'm not giving up on, on Manchester City at the moment. But, we're looking at a situation where Liverpool, if they beat Southampton, that's at points. And guess what? Next weekend, they're going to Anfield. So, I mean, Anfield, whatever the situation may be a catalyst. But, I mean, I don't even want to say it's a wake-up call. This is the season for Manchester City, isn't it?
Yeah, let me come to you as well on this one, because, again, it's just, I mean, the Premier League so far this season, so hard to call. And we do know that it is one of the more competitive leagues in the world. But this result, again, jaws will hit the floor, because we know that Ange Postecoglou's Spurs definitely has warranted a lot of respect from us. Even though they can be Spursy at times, they'll know that. But this is that kind of result that just makes you go, how on earth did you pull this off? What did they do right? Or was it just an off day for Manchester City and Pep?
First of all, Alexis, I know that you are just loving every single second of this. I know you are.
I'm down in 14th.
I'm just going to tell you something. I'm laughing at Man City. I think this was absolutely hilarious. Let me just say this to answer your question. Only Tottenham can lose to Ipswich Town and then go to the Etihad and snap a 52-match unbeaten run, give Pep Guardiola his worst ever loss at the Etihad, right? Man City have failed to score for the first time in 8 months at the Etihad. But let's forget for Man City for a second. Let's absolutely give Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou the flowers here. That was their best performance, in my opinion, under Postecoglou since he arrived. That was a tremendous game for Tottenham. Yes, we can talk about, Janusz is correct about, the key players that were missing from Man City. And sometimes the most obvious answer is the actual one, which is Rodri's absence is huge. There is an acre of space in that midfield for Man City right now. But it's not just about him. Janusz is correct. Ruben Dias, etc. There's a transitional period going on for Man City right now. The problem is that it's not happening in the preseason. It's happening right in the middle of something as you're trying to get the title over Liverpool, and it's not happening. But I want to go back to Tottenham. They were fantastic, and they gave Man City a dose of their own medicine. They pressed high. They were physical. They were doing the quintessential Pep Guardiola lesson, which is don't press the man, press where the ball is going. And that's what Tottenham did for the entire game. I thought James Maddison, the birthday boy, was obviously wonderful, but everybody played a role. Dejan Kulusevski was magnificent. Everybody was just working so hard. And for them to go to the Etihad after the international break, knowing that Man City want to end a 4-game losing streak, where they just kept losing and needed a reaction, they went in there and they didn't just win against Man City. Just like Janusz said, they embarrassed them. They destroyed them. And you have to give full credit. I don't know what's going to happen with Tottenham after this. They might lose every game for the rest of the year after this. All I know is that today, I saw the best performance Tottenham has given under Andrei Postecoglou, and they deserve all of it because every single player played their part.
You know, Janusz, I think you kind of hinted at it as well, because we talk about it so much when it comes to Arsenal in terms of having squad depth. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about Aston Villa. Now that they have European football, you know, you want the biggest, best squad. You don't want a gap between your first 11 and then whomever else is coming off the bench. Man City for years now has been the envy of every club in the world in terms of squad depth. As you said, they're without big hitters like Rodri, who we know is the heart of that midfield there, but it's still such a formidable 11 that Pep can put out there. You know, could be the envy. You have likes of Phil Foden up there. You have the likes of Erling Haaland still there. And even when Spurs went 2-0 up, I said, there's still plenty of football to play because we expect City to come roaring back, especially in the second half, which is something that they do. Why didn't we see that today? Or what's going on in terms of this squad that has been the envy of everybody for a number of years?
Well, I mean, in a way, it's a perfect storm that started a while ago. I mean, usually when you have a situation like this, right, and you lose now 5 games on the trot when you mention City, you know something's deeper than that. This is not just a one-off, right? I mean, if the same situation, say Manchester City, you know, won 3 out of last 4 and they lose to Spurs, I think it's a different conversation because these things can happen. It is a Premier League, right? You're looking at Spurs, to give him credit, right? I mean, pressing, I hear what you get. We saw it from now, but this is a perfect situation for Spurs. They're their bogey team for one reason or another. God knows why that is, that City has all these problems with Spurs, but, you know, they're away and they're good on the counter. This is maybe not how Ange Postecoglou wants to always play. He wants to be expensive. He wants to play from the front. But here, after the loss of Ipswich, let's not forget, I mean, a lot was on the line for Spurs and Ange in particular. I don't know if they're ever, I hope they're never close of letting him go, but there are question marks, right? I mean, there are definite question marks about Spurs and some of these results. So this was very difficult, and I think Ange knew it, and I think he's kept fullbacks back today, which he rarely does. Right. And the reason Manchester City is in this situation, I mean, I don't want to spend time, but I think it's on every play, but I think it's worth saying it, other than the players that they were missing. Right. I mean, you have Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
He's got 6 or 7 great chances. Right. And it's games like these, when you have these chances, that you have to come good. I'm not saying that there are games where he doesn't score against top teams, because he does. But there are a lot of them when we talk about it, right? Sometimes when you Erling Haaland that scores goals for fun, you have to put them away. You know, that chance in the 4th minute when Joško Guardiola played him that ball, there's another one over the top. I mean, those are the chances. It changes the game probably, right? If they go ahead in this game. So you look at that. You look at the best player in the Premier League last year, Phil Foden, for whatever reason. We can talk about it, right? You know, long summer, European championships. Where is he? He hasn't been anywhere, right? You look at John Stones, injuries. He was hooked at halftime, right? Partially him and Walker. I'll move on him as well, because Walker at fault for first 2 goals as well, right? In the vicinity. Joško Guardiola, young, but very, very dependable. 2 silly mistakes for the first 2 goals. Bernardo Silva doesn't seem the same to me. Savinho today was playing central for whatever reason. Pep wanted to do what Maresca did today with Chelsea, right? And plus put the white player inside. Well, they know each other, so fair play. And you could go on and on and on with the players they're missing. They're just, I mean, is there one Manchester City player who's in form at the moment? Because I'm hard-pressed to find truly informed, playing up to their level and up to their potential. And yes, injuries, this and that, but that's what I mean. As deep as everybody is, there comes a time that when you're so weak in possession, I looked at the LME, I look at the midfield today, I didn't look at the final number, but 5 minutes before the end, Gundogan, second coming of Gundogan, certainly not good. Just to add him to that list. I look at Gundogan, I look at Rico Lewis, another player, young, impressed, but it's kind of physically ain't Rodri, that's for sure. And I look at the three players. Who was the third? I think it was Bernardo Silva. They were all in high 90s in terms of passes completed, which tells you a lot, because that's an amazing. That's what normally you should have. But it begs the question where those passes were, right? Slapping in the back, sideways. They weren't the type of passing up until maybe last 10 minutes where City kind of started looking for that one goal that you sort of associate them with, the through balls and the beautiful, cutbacks and all of that, getting behind the defense. So I just think we're at a time where this is as real as it gets for Manchester City, any other club. And they have a very, very small window right now to get that right, because as we said, Liverpool's coming up.
Yeah, exactly. And Elemi, I would say that for Manchester City, though, it did look like it was shaping out to be a typical Manchester City performance for about 10 minutes. And then, of course, Spurs dealt that first blow through James Maddison. Kulusevski was just unreal with picking him out there for that first goal. And then it looked like City just at least mentally started to break down. And then you started to question who on this City team, maybe even in the midfield and the defense, when you don't have the Rodris, etc., is there to do that dirty defensive work for the rest of it. And they showed today, at least today, that they may not have that. Do you think that's what let them down as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to echo a few of the things that Janusz said, and he's rightly justifiable to speak specifically in that midfield. Rico Lewis, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan. Great tactical players, as Janusz mentioned, the pass accuracy towards the 90 percentile. That doesn't matter when you play somebody like Tottenham that's going to be in your face. You need to be real physical and a brick and be consistent. And again, I know that we keep, banging this drum, but Rodri's absence is gigantic. Yeah. It's just so big. And I just thought it was going to be an issue. I didn't think it was going to be this much of an issue. There is no accountability in the midfield right now for Manchester City. And like Janusz said, we're not just talking about one game here. This is 5 straight matches where now there are no answers. And during this game today, there was some fans behind Pep saying, Pep, please change something, do something. But what can he do? Because right now, when you look at this personnel, it's just not good enough. And again, fair play to Tottenham, who came in here with a mission. And they were like, we're going to Mike Tyson you. When not the boxing one that we just saw, but the old school Mike Tyson.
That was a boxing.
Not that. His whole saying, when you have a plan, everybody has a plan until you punch them in the face, and that's what Tottenham did. They wanted to punch you in the face, and there are so many issues right now, and that's why I said at the beginning of this video that Man City are a team in transition right now. It's just the problem is it's happening at the worst possible time, and you need to have accountable people to do it. Tottenham deserve everything they got because those goals were also magnificent, like the way that they played together. And right now, if I'm looking at Rico Lewis, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, that to me does not scare me as a midfield. And that's not meant to happen. So there's a lot of issues going on. I thought Tottenham deserved everything that they can get, but Pep Guardiola has a lot to do here. Oh, and by the way, I keep knocking on this one as well. I think it was a mistake to let Julian Alvarez go. Because when Erling Haaland is not clicking, right? We're talking about 23 shots that Man City did today, and yet Tottenham got more on target. Just like Janusz said, some of those shots that Erling Haaland took, he didn't take them. Sometimes you need somebody else, a different kind of dynamic. Who else is after Erling Haaland in terms of that position? Julian Alvarez gave that kind of angle. Okay, fair enough. It doesn't have to be him, but you never really replace that. And you can see it right now, especially when games get tricky for Manchester City.
Yeah,
I remember we did have that conversation on our other show, Football Americas. Shaq and I were the only ones that said Julian Alvarez leaving Man City was a big blow to City.
Well, I'm joining you there, Hermana.
They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But tell me when you need someone to come up with a clutch goal out of nothing, Julian Alvarez was
because it wasn't just about Julian Alvarez leaving. It's about the fact that there was no replacement.
Right.
For him. That to me is
That's a bigger issue because I mean you can't stop. And Pep was one of the first. He always says that if somebody says
Yeah.
they don't want to be there,
He'll let
that's
them
it,
go.
right?
right.
So it wasn't that, but yeah, perhaps replace. But look, this is not unusual, right? I mean, the best way to fix this because you're not going to replace Rodri. Couple of things. I mean, they could. I'll start with that. You could. Kovacic, by the way, has done well before the injury, and I think his wife had a baby as well because I remember when Croatia played Poland, he wasn't available for the international break, the one before as well. He played in the last one, but so he's had some issue. But I mean, he's been okay. I think part of the issue is that Manchester City is stuck or is not working going forward. That's the issue because when you possess the ball the way they normally possess and they camp themselves in the opponent's half. And that machine is working, right? Where they probe, where they keep you there, they're patient, they wait for the opportunity to take advantage. Now, even at the best of times, they were always open to counters, right? And you quite rightly, Rodri had the physicality and know-how, by the way, right? Because as a former player, I'm not afraid to say that because physically, he could recover. He was great in obviously recovering the ball, not just space. He was also smart and intelligent, knowing when and how to foul. Right? As a player, I'll tell you, people don't like when we say that, but that exists in the game. Some of these tactical fouls, and that's the name of the game. It's just what it is, if you like it or not. So as you said, Gundogan physically and Rico Lewis aren't going to do it. Kovacic can fix that, of course. I still think that. Obviously transfer window, they may have to dip into that in January, who knows? But I've told you before, he's young, but, Joško Gvardiol, he looks a player with everything that they've had before, right? Before, they had Fernandinho, remember, physicality, kind of strength, ability to go forward. Then came Rodri. I look at Joško Gvardiol. He's very much capable of doing that, right? Today he had a bad game in terms of conceding, making 2 mistakes, but overall as a play, John Stones, when healthy and if healthy, can do it. But bottom line is, I mean, we still have to, as much as you look at this, it's 8 points, who knows, possibly 11 if they were to lose at Liverpool, right? But I still think they're slowly recovering players. I think Grealish and De Bruyne, they need a big win. I don't know, and maybe at Anfield, who knows? When they recover the players, it's still not beyond the reach. By the way, it's so easy to stick a boot in Manchester City today, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of it so far, if I may say so. But I'm being careful to hedge my bets here. But it's one of those where we're just not used to this, guys. We have never seen this before from Pep Guardiola and Manchester City in his reign, at home, right? And all the games that they've won. And it's just something that I think we're going to struggle in truly explaining. But I just look at this and everyone's off form. Really, everyone.
Well, knowing exactly how Pep Guardiola is and the fact that he's such a perfectionist, Elami, Janusz touched on it right there. The City are probably going to be looking at dipping into this January transfer window a lot more than they probably planned to at the beginning of the season. We know that they're spoiled for resources. We keep talking about Rodri. No like-for-like replacement for Julian Alvarez just yet to, and even Pep admitted that would come back to haunt them a little bit. So are those 2 positions priority, you think, even though how do you replace a Ballon d'Or winner in Rodri, but at least is that where Pep is looking instantly to try and right this ship?
I guess. But, like Janusz said, some players are coming back to fitness, so he has to evaluate. The number 9 role remains something for me as well, because when you remove Erling Haaland, and even when Erling Haaland doesn't work, who do you have as well? But yes, I agree. I think those are the 2 things. But who do you put? Like you said, even if you bring somebody in, they're going to have to do this. Nobody's replacing Rodri, but they have to at least try and imitate what Rodri offers, which is stability, both physical and, like Janusz said, brain stability in that midfield. Who is that? I kind of like Ederson from Atalanta, but there's no way Atalanta letting him go. You know what I mean? So, and also it's a January window. And here's the other thing. What good player with massive objectives of their own will want to go to a Manchester City who is also facing 115 charges? Because we don't know the outcome of that. So that's also the the fragile state of the future of Man City is always going to linger on the brains of many players who may be wanted by City. Yes, obviously in the past, who wouldn't want to play for Man City, et cetera, but these are different times. And it's going to be very intriguing to see what happens. I agree with Janusz. You can't, and mathematically, you can't write them off. Obviously, you can't do that. We've seen it in the past. I think that Liverpool game is going to be big, but you still can't write them off. The only thing that worries me as opposed to any other season is that this is a different team. They're in transition. Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, De Bruyne. We have about 6 or 7 players who are either 34 or in their 30s. So how much can they push towards this run? It's going to be a tricky thing. And like you said as well, Alexis, this is such a competitive race, not just for the title, but for European places. There are no givens here. It's going to be tricky.
Well, we've been talking so much about Manchester City for 21 minutes, and they're the ones that lost today. Janusz, I want to end on talking about Spurs. Just final thoughts. The fact that this is a massive win, and this sends a massive message to show what Ange Postecoglou's Spurs are capable of. Now, we've seen glimpses of it, but it's just to consistently see it. How do they build on this? What do you want to see them build on that they can take from this game in terms of pushing maybe for a top 4 spot?
Yeah, I think balance in this team, right? And not just, obviously he picked the right strategy. And by the way, today, I think it was maybe a little bit easier because it's one of those games where nobody could question him why he's, kept maybe fullbacks back a little bit differently. Think about it. All the losses we've talked about, but look at Spurs today. 2 starting center backs, not there. No Romero, no Mickey Van de Ven. If you tell me you're going to go with Dragushin and Ben Davies, I don't know, he doesn't play that often, to the Etihad and win 4-0, keep a clean sheet, right? I'd say you're crazy. And so that was very, very important. That probably played on his mind. So now the players have told him that they can stay organized, because I think that was part of the Spurs problem, that the idea, I think maybe that perception that Ange always saying, listen, I'm not changing the way I'm playing. Well, he kind of did change a little bit the way he plays. So it's good because we see flexibility. And now when he goes back against smaller opposition, you have to say, well, think of it sometimes as they are Manchester City. It doesn't mean that we just have to attack, because if you look at Spurs, they're just as vulnerable in transition as Manchester City were today. So we've always asked for a little bit of balance. I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a catalyst for Ange, where they say, okay, we've done this now, but we cannot afford to have another Ipswich game, right? Those games are bread and butter, and obviously it's easy to get up against great teams, but I think Ange is going to have to say to the players, this is the time right now. Big win for us. There's a lot of teams that are interested in the top 4 positions, and we can that opportunity let it slide through our fingers after this.
Yes, indeed. What a message from Tottenham Hotspur on this day. As a matter of fact, the last time the reigning top flight champions lost 5 in a row was Chelsea back in 1956, and not even our Stevie Nicol was born then. So Manchester
I don't believe you.
Tumbling some records. I know Stevie. We joke that Stevie was born in like 1856, but don't worry, he was born in the 60s. Just missed the cut. Stevie Nicol wasn't even a thought in his parents' mind the last time that something today.
He'll be here after we're all gone.
He'll be here indeed. It's hard to take a Scotsman down. We know that very well. But apparently not that hard to take Manchester City down unless you're Spurs, because they seem to be their bogey team there. LME, un placer como siempre. Janusz, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on another edition of ESPN FC Live.